Hello and welcome to Omnitrans's virtual public hearing. My name is Victor Quate, the Service Planning Manager at Omnitrans, and I will be facilitating the live virtual public hearings on March 22nd, 26th, 27th, and 30th of 2021. Omnitrans is gathering feedback on 3 items that are presented in this video. But first, how do you submit comments? You will be able to state your comments at a live virtual hearing if you attend. You may also mail in comments to the address on the screen. You may email or call us, or you can submit a comment using the online comment form at omnitrans.org/public hearings 21. Staff who speak English and Spanish will be available at these virtual hearings. We will be able to assist if you require translation services in other languages. The deadline to submit comments is April 9th, 2021. The first hearing is Omnitrans's COVID-related service changes. This timeline represents how the agency responded to the COVID pandemic. In January 2020, the first known COVID case made U.S. headlines, and on March 19th, a stay-at-home order was mandated in California. Omnitrans ceased fare collection and began rear door boarding 2 days later on March 21st. On March 23rd, Omnitrans implemented its emergency service plan, and on April 13th, Omnitrans once again reduced service levels. What did this do? Effectively, frequencies were halved. 15-minute routes went to 30-minute routes, and 30-minute routes went to hourly frequencies. There were no frequency reductions for routes already at 60 minutes. Between the end of April through May, the agency designed and installed driver barriers, which led to the continuation of fare collection and front door boarding on June 1st. While maintenance was working on the barrier installations, staff were planning on how to return to normal service levels. Consequently, a trigger-based approach and a scenario to increase service levels were adopted in early May of 2020. In January of 2020, Omnitrans held a series of public meetings which led to the implementation of the Connect Forward network change on September 7th. Omnitrans also implemented its first service resumption step. So what did we do? We added 20-minute frequency between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on our core routes 1, 3, 4, 14, 61, and 66 during the week. Between April 13th and September 6th, these routes were solely operating on a 30-minute frequency. Since then, we have monitored and maintained the same service levels. This has allowed the agency to better position itself financially for long-term uncertainty. So prior to the pandemic, the only planned service change was a Connect Forward plan, which called for an 11% service reduction beginning on September 7th. The green line in this chart represents the scenario C, and it represents the then approved resumption path. Let's keep in mind that the scenario C resumption path was based on the premise that COVID was not long-term. Let's also remember that this resumption path was approved in early May 2020, which is less than 2 months after the stay-at-home order mandate. What has actually happened though is that based on our adopted triggers, we have added little service in September. As Omnitrans moves forward, we want to understand how this emergency service reduction, which was COVID related, has impacted you. Thank you. Our next public hearing item is a service resumption prioritization plan. I just represented the COVID impacts on service levels over this last year. Based on triggers, the agency adopted what we have, and we have taken smaller resumption path. What are these triggers? There are 4 triggers that the agency monitors. The health and safety trigger focuses on employee safety and bus capacity, which impacts the rider demand trigger in terms of providing safe seating capacity levels. The ridership demand trigger helps us determine what services should we resume based on passenger loads. The financial trigger is designed to keep the agency financially sustainable through these unpredictable times. And the employee recall trigger is designed to recall staff to support the current services we are operating and any additional services we bring back. This graph represents resumption steps the agency is proposing. Omnitrans wants your feedback on these 7 resumption steps. I will go through them in detail, but first we want to mention that completing all 7 steps may take 2 or more years as we continue to monitor feedback, data, and funding levels. Also, these proposed steps are built from each other. This map represents status quo or the current services. The green map represents steps 1, 2, and 3, which restore Route 67 and launch the new Route 83 or an OmniRide Upland service. In these steps, we would also restore services tied to school bells. And finally, we would be adding 20-minute frequency between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. on core routes 1, 3, 4, 14, 61, and 66 during the week. Again, currently these routes only have 20-minute frequency between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., which means we would be adding about 4 more morning hours of 20-minute frequency. Step 4 adds 30-minute frequency between 6 and 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for routes 6, 8, 10, 15, 19, 22, 83, 85, and 215. So again, we would be adding morning peak and evening peak frequency of 30 minutes in step 4. Step 5 adds 15-minute service between 6 and 9 a.m. and 3 and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for routes 1, 3, 4, 14, 61, and SBX. The 20-minute frequency from step 3 remains intact for these routes as well. Again, these steps are built off of one another. For the Connect Forward plan, Route 66 is to have a maximum frequency of 20 minutes, and therefore the 20-minute service will be implemented for Route 66 throughout the day in this step. Step 6 proposes to reinstate the remaining weekday services on the following routes: 1, 3, 4, 6, 14, 15, 19, 61, 85, and SBX. For example, this means that Route 85 would receive its original 30-minute frequency all day, Monday through Friday, as opposed to just the peak in the morning and evening based off of step 4. Step 7 focuses on reinstating all weekend services on routes 1, 66, 215, SBX, Route 383 or OmniRide Upland. Furthermore, Omnitrans proposes that steps 1 through 3 begin in line with the reopening of schools in August of this year, and that step 4 would be proposed for January of 2022. Again, Omnitrans is seeking your input on the resumption step prioritization plan. Details are shown on this slide. Thank you. Lastly, the third item is a short-range transit plan. The SRTP lays out the service and fare changes over the next 5 years. Omnitrans is seeking input from you to shape the future of our services. For example, are there microtransit programs you would like to see, and if so, where? We currently have a microtransit program called OmniRide, and the service exists in Chino Hills and Chino. Information about this program is found on our website. Would you like to see services that get to your destination faster and more frequently? Examples of such services are limited stop routes or bus rapid transit, or BRT, like our SBX Green Line. If so, what routes would you suggest making limited stop routes? Do you enjoy our Freeway Express routes 215 and 290? Would you like to see more services of this type? What suggestions can you provide us? Provide us feedback on what you want to see in terms of span and frequency. Which routes are critical to you that you would like to see improvements on? What about holiday services? Currently, Omnitrans does not provide service on certain holidays. Would you like to see that change? Is our network extensive enough? Do we connect you to where you want to go? Provide us details on where you want connections to and from. Finally, in the short-range transit plan, Omnitrans is not proposing a fare increase until September of 2023, which is fiscal year 2024. At the time, we plan to increase the base fare of $2 to $2.25, which is close to a 12% increase. and at that time we will also increase fares by a similar percentage. Uh, let us know your thoughts on this. Please submit any comments on any of these presentation topics. We hope to see and speak to you at the virtual public hearings later in the month. Thank you for your time.